We are punctual and disorganized, but that makes for good programming if we don't know what the other person's going to say. But we're going to talk about NFL Week 3, which was forgettable for me. And then we're going to look ahead at Week 4. Ron, I had a crappy week. How was your week?
Not much better, to be honest. And if I looked at all 16 games and made a decision, I would have had a winning week. But I only had one regret on not playing a particular game. That was Indianapolis against Baltimore. And the games I did play were under 500 again. So it's been a slow season for the NFL. I wish I could turn on the switch, but it's only 3 weeks.
Well, I saw an interesting stat, and let me find it here. Oh, boy. The hilarity here of disorganization. Oh, God, How many times? So you had the public Week 3 sides. 86% Seahawks, winner. 82% Dolphins, winner. 82% Cowboys, loser. Between 75 and 72%, Lions, Chiefs, Eagles, Patriots, Bills, all winners.
7 out of 8.
That means a losing week. If we're against the public and the public sweeps the board, we're going to have a losing week.
Yeah. Well, it's just going to be, we just move on. Don't do anything different. We've got 3 weeks of data points now. Jumping the gun on data points can be scary, especially if you consider, we talked about this offline. The Lions had 1 defensive sack coming into last week, and then they had 7 against Atlanta. So on the surface, oh my goodness, only 1 sack in 2 weeks. And now they have 8 in 3 weeks. And 8 is much more on their projection that I had. Kind of jumped the gun a little bit there because I went under the sack total for that game. But that's why you wait 3-4 weeks before you compile the data.
Well, you said you wanted to talk about that Atlanta game.
Yeah. Well, that was really about the line of scrimmage. That's pretty much what it was. Atlanta's offensive line, by many people's estimation, is top 5, and they got butchered by the Lions. Atlanta is known for running first, running second, running third. They had 44 rushing yards and took 7 sacks against the Detroit Lions. That's where I think the game was won and lost.
Well, the Detroit defense won the game against Kansas City, and they certainly won the game against Atlanta. It's impressive how many people were out on the Detroit defense. And this Branch guy, he may be the best player on their defense. Wasn't he a second-round pick?
Yeah, that's the pick I like the best from them. That was the one that was properly drafted. Oh, again, I don't get to share your food.
What food? It's AI.
Yeah. I have to motion to the other room. I can match you, but I'll go without.
This Branch guy, they're saying, is probably the best guy on defense right now. And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. For the most part, Atlanta only has to cover 2 guys. They have to cover St. Brown, and they have to cover the rookie tight end Laporta, who has 18 receptions. And as a rookie, that's the most receptions in a long, long time for a tight end. 2 guys.
That's an NFL record.
Yeah, Atlanta couldn't do it. They couldn't cover 2 guys. And I'm going to be asking you a question later on about teams like Atlanta and how to scheme for them and how to model for them if you can.
Chargers, Vikings. Chargers chargered, but got away with it.
Yeah.
It
wasn't about last team has the ball wins. It was which team was going to lose the game. They both tried really, really hard to lose the game. Yeah. Not much more needed to be said there. If they played 50 times, they'd split them.
I saw a stat on Henry, and I forget what it is, but it was a pretty impressive stat about how I think it was like in the high single digits of the number of carries that are considered breaking contact, and he had a very high percentage. He hasn't broken one tackle this through 3 games yet. So
typically, he's a slow starter.
This guy is really not doing anything yet this year. So that's part of the problem.
Roughly 3.2 per carry.
Pardon me?
3.2 per carry this year.
Is this Browns defense really that good?
They're showing number 1 right now as far as my metrics are concerned. So they do look pretty good. When we go, I have the numbers, but they're kind of in rotation order. But they certainly have. They're allowing, I believe, under 50% passing. You have some teams that are allowing 80% after a very small 3-game sample size, but still 50% is really impressive.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what do you think about the Jets? 13-10 at one point. I don't know about you. I had 3 points in that game, and then they get caught in their own end zone for a safety.
Yeah, they lost at least 2 games like that last year.
Yeah. There's no trust, obviously, in Zach Wilson. They couldn't run the ball. I did say, we talked about this, Breece Hall was definitely going to have more than 4 carries this week. So we ended up with somewhere around 12 carries, but it was 1.5 yards per carry. He couldn't do a thing against the New England run defense. So that offensive line without Aaron Rodgers, without the savvy and experience of Aaron Rodgers, I think it's getting exposed, and the Jets better do something about that quickly, or their offense is just going to lag behind all season long.
Well, they at least signed the quarterback of the future today, so that's good.
Oh, okay.
And you're right. Cleveland is a 48% pass completion.
Yeah, it's really an incredible stat.
Look at this. Minnesota, Las Vegas, Denver are 75% up.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, so 50% is really definitely based on standard deviations. It's pretty good. How do you lose a 17-3 lead if you're New Orleans and you have a pretty good defense?
17-0.
17-0, even worse.
They gave up 3 touchdowns, and they went for 2 when they were down 14, which is now the smart thing to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, some people like that nowadays, down 14, going for 2. So, but the fact is, Dennis Allen, when there's coaching decisions on the line, I still don't get it with them. So
I can't figure out these Packers, and this line today's been going up and down like a yo-yo. It was 1.5, 2, then it was picked to. I think I saw Green Bay 1, and now that's gone. And now Detroit's by 1.5 again. But I think it's because Campbell's saying Montgomery and Decker and a few others are trending in. And then Green Bay's running back, what's his name again? Aaron, right? Jones?
Yeah, he'll probably, this would be a Thursday game. If they played him on Sunday, he wouldn't have been. Yeah. Yeah, it's a short week for these guys. So they rested Watson, the wide receiver. They rested Aaron Jones. So we have to wait game time decision. There seems to be a bigger gap than originally thought between Aaron Jones and Dillon at running back. So it makes a difference. And Detroit's not allowing much at all against the run right now. So, and if I were Detroit, I would scheme to making Jordan Love beat you through the air, because right now Jordan Love's pass percentage in this RPO type of league is very low. It's in the mid-50s. And I know he's stretching the field with some deep throws, but if you're going to hit in the mid-50s in the NFL, and you're not going to be able to run the ball at the same time, that's going to be a problem. So I think Green Bay really does need Aaron Jones back for this game.
Yeah, Green Bay 53%. The Jets are the only team below him, but what do you think about Trevor Siemian joining the Jets? That's an immediate upgrade, right?
Yeah, right. Trevor Siemian, the best thing he did in college, he organized a players union at Northwestern. Yeah, that's what I remember him most for in terms of unionizing the whole thing. But NFL, he's probably stealing money every time he gets signed to a contract. Smart guy, but he doesn't have the NFL arm strength or the NFL talent.
Well, obviously the Dolphins are that good and Denver's that bad, so we can go on from there. No, same with Washington and the Bills, right?
Yeah, that was impressive by Buffalo. I didn't see that coming. I don't think we saw that coming at all. So if they rely on the run game and have run-pass balance in Buffalo, they're a completely different team. It really makes a difference. As for Washington, I think we saw the Sam Howell, closer to the Sam Howell that was week 1 than what happened on week 2. Got a little bit excited about his week 2 performance, but the bottom line is he hasn't had enough time seeing NFL defenses. Buffalo is one of the more veteran defensive teams in all of the NFL. They confused him. He threw 4 interceptions. I think we're going to have to get used to Sam Howell having erratic performances all season long.
Let's see. Yeah, Washington's getting sacked 16% of the time they drop back.
Yeah.
How is
we
that
talked
possible?
last week. We talked last week. They had allowed 10 sacks, which translated to incredible 85 for the year. Well, now they've allowed 19 sacks, which translates to over 100. So somebody's not doing their job. The offensive line coach, the offensive line, the quarterback, the running backs, and pass protection. 19 sacks is not a very good figure in 3 games. That's more than Atlanta gets defensively in 17 games. Hi, Birdie.
I had a question. What do you make of this Indy Baltimore game? Because it was just
it's John Harbaugh.
Ridiculous. The coaching, the refereeing, just everything in this game.
Yeah, I can't comment on the refereeing, but I can comment on the coaching. Read my article at Wager Talk. I'm done supporting John Harbaugh as even an average coach right now. I've given him the benefit of the doubt way too long, even though I know what happens in crunch time at the end of the second quarter and the fourth quarter. He is just not a good coach. This organization, unlike so many organizations, staffs the roster in an incredible manner. I mean, they've been top 10 drafting in probably 9 of the last 10 years and top 5 in 5 of the last 10 years. So you cannot blame the roster construction at all. They should be doing a lot more. I know they've been hurt a lot, but it's next man up, and Baltimore can do that more than other teams. I'm just incredibly unimpressed with John Harbaugh, and they gave away a game, and now they're sitting in a division that we all think is going to be a dogfight, and they gave away a game.
I just can't believe it. I mean, how many ways can you lose? You have the poor coaching, you have Tucker missing field goals, you've got the referee jobbing them clearly, the injuries. I mean, it's just incredulous. But how did Indianapolis do it? Somebody was asking about their offensive line and their ability to control. I don't even know about that. Did you actually look into that?
Well, I'm going to look at their 3-game stats sheet because, as you know, I've been running around a lot. So we're doing this on the fly, the ultimate on the fly. Right now, I'd say their stat sheet is pretty much what I expected, with the exception of defensive sacks. I did not expect 12 sacks in the first 3 games. Playing Baltimore, Houston, and Jacksonville, 12 is impressive because they shouldn't have 12 against those 3 offenses. Maybe Houston, but Houston's overperforming this year. So maybe that Darius Leonard is back, and I haven't checked into him specifically, but his impact, as we know, he was missing last year, and it had a great impact on Indianapolis' entire season. If he's there and he's putting up numbers and he makes everybody around him that much better because he's a top 10 defensive player, there's hope for Indy in a division where nobody seems to want to take it.
Sorry, I'm trying to place a bet. I'm stuck in spin mode.
Russell says Leonard isn't really making a difference, not himself yet. And I agreed with that. I don't expect him to be at full strength right now. So I have to do a deeper dive into what's causing Indy to look a little bit better than I thought they would in terms of defensive pass pressure. But, we talked about this. Minshew's a very accurate quarterback. So he doesn't stretch the field, but he's very accurate. So in lieu of Richardson, teams have to prepare differently depending on which Indianapolis quarterback shows up. And that matchup that we'll talk about with the Rams, pretty intriguing for this coming week.
Minshew did a phenomenal job. He didn't foul up anything, did he?
No. I mean, he did just fine. That's his role there. No interceptions. Only one touchdown pass, but it's Baltimore. That's a good performance against Baltimore, 27 of 44.
Carolina was disappointing. I expected more out of them. And I don't know. I watched a lot of that first half, and they seemed to be moving, and I missed the second half. I don't know how they fell apart.
Well, as much as Carolina is trying, they have a very, very weak roster. And we talked about this. Part of the problem is poor drafting because they've squandered draft choices in each of the 3 years. And of course, they also gave away, a very important player in terms of their top wide receiver in order to get Bryce Young to begin with. So this is a roster that has issues right now. They have to build that roster back up. It's not there right now. I'm extremely thrilled that they're 0-3 because that's a big position for me. And as much as they're trying, and as much as Seattle is not a complete team right now, Seattle just has more weapons. They have far better wide receivers, more experience at quarterback, even though there was experience at quarterback for Carolina. Dalton threw for something like 300 plus yards. So Dalton wasn't the issue. The issue was they just ran out of bodies to stop Seattle in the second half. And they just don't have a lot of weapons that's scary. When Adam Thielen is your number one receiver and he's not going to stretch the field at this point in his career, that's going to be an issue for Carolina fans. Their tight ends don't stretch the field. Their wide receivers do not stretch the field.
Did I misread something? Was I think he threw to him like 11 or 13 times for like an average of 3 yards or something?
Yeah, Thielen caught 11 passes. I think it was like 6 yards of reception or something. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that's what they're doing. The offensive line isn't going to give them a lot of time, and the receivers aren't going to have separation. It's a work in progress with Carolina. And this week, Carolina and Denver, that should be fun.
I think we commented last week on Houston and Arizona. As we get to Dallas, I realize we skipped over Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Didn't we mention these guys are professionals? They're playing for roster spots. I think they're gonna play hard. You got to be cautious. And obviously they showed up.
Yeah, Houston and Arizona, also part of my article. I'm impressed with the way they're playing. DeMeco Ryans has the potential to be a pretty good head coach. He had not a long career as coordinator, but a productive career. If he becomes a better judge of talent than everything that Houston's done in the past, and if they stop drafting guys that don't see the field, like Stingley, who's injured again and he's on IR, if they do a better job in drafting players who are actually going to play for them, the future is going to be bright. And Stroud has been amazing, completely exceeding my expectations and most likely everybody's expectations. So I give Houston a lot of credit. We'll see what happens. These guys play 12 college games. They're going to be tasked to play 17 NFL games. I'm not sure Houston can pick it up all season long. But if you want to back a team that's an underdog that's trying, Houston and Arizona are absolutely teams that you could back.
Yeah, I agree. And what's that Dobbs, is that the quarterback in Arizona?
Yeah, Dobbs, and he's exceeding my expectation too. I didn't think we'd get as much out of Connor, the running back in Arizona, but right now he's exceeding my expectations as well. I thought if they couldn't run the ball, they'd have to have Dobbs throw the ball a lot more than he has had to. And that hasn't been an issue. Plus, Arizona's defense has played, with the exception of the meltdown against the New York Giants in the second half, they played. I mean, they're not a great defense, but they played better than I expected. They're not allowing 30 plus points a game every week. So,
I mean, how the hell does this happen? I mean, it can't just be because of Diggs being out. I mean, they were just dominated. I think Arizona scored every single possession of the first half.
the one fly in the ointment for your very good 50-1 Mike McCarthy future play coach of the year is that I don't think McCarthy is one of those motivator type coaches. And I don't think Dallas was focused on this game at all. Easy to say after the fact, but I did say it before the fact. This was not a good setup for Dallas to come in here and play an Arizona team that just gave up a 20-0 lead the week before.
Well, the Bears and the Chiefs, forget that. Steelers, you buying the Steelers at all, or you have a feeling the Raiders are worse than we thought they were, and Pittsburgh is okay? What do you think?
Well, on the Vegas side, Josh Jacobs isn't doing a thing. He's not running a lot, and McDaniel's system relies on Jacobs carrying between 17 and 20 times a game to open up the offense, which is really Devontae Adams and who knows who else. Pittsburgh, whenever J.J. Watt is in the game, Pittsburgh's formidable. I'm not sure the offense is – I think the offense is below par, but Jimmy G threw, 3 interceptions in that game? It was ugly, and Pittsburgh is going to be fundamentally sound defensively. So Pittsburgh's going to be in games. I don't think they're world beaters. That's a tough division, but you're going to get their best effort out of them. And as long as J.J. Watt stays healthy, they're going to be better than the Raiders, as it turns out. In a bad situational spot, Pittsburgh took it to the Raiders.
Well, the Eagles finally took care of business, and Baker wasn't able to do squat, and they just kept running the ball. This Bowles guy has the imagination of a goldfish, so it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, the modern era of football is if you have pure defensive coaches as head coaches, it's going to possibly not be in your best interest 75% of the time, and certainly that's the case here in New Orleans and so on. They're still relying on their defense. Game manager is sometimes a good thing, but with Baker Mayfield, it also shows his limitations. And I think Baker Mayfield has a pretty low ceiling, pretty high floor, pretty low ceiling. And so he's tasked to go against Philadelphia's front seven, and he's not going to get the job done. And if Jalen Hurts, with 11 days off, was able to get the job done against Tampa Bay, 25 points doesn't seem like a lot, but with Philly's defense against Baker Mayfield, 25 points is clearly enough to win the game.
Well, he and several of the other players had the flu too, or were getting over it, so that couldn't have helped.
No.
And the Rams showed up as we kind of expected them to. I don't think Cincinnati, Cincinnati still looks like they have problems, don't they? Did you watch any of the game last night?
No, I was unavailable, so I was able to catch the last 5 minutes of the game, but I wasn't really watching much because I was not even in town. But in looking back over the game summary, certainly they if Cincy was not 0-2, Burrow would never have played that game. But they had a sense of urgency to have Burrow in that particular game. But here's the problem. Cincinnati has a still relatively, let's say, veteran defense in many parts. And what happened is that Matthew Stafford went back to old ways, threw a couple of interceptions. From what I heard, they were poorly thrown balls. I don't know if you have a different view because
He
I
was
didn't see
throwing
it.
into some unbelievable coverage and getting
Yeah.
away with it early.
Yeah, in a defensive-minded game where you knew that points were not going to be plentiful, the way the game flow went, it was probably best not to put yourself in harm's way. And unfortunately for the Rams, Stafford put himself in harm's way.
You wanted to touch base on head coaching decisions.
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about Baltimore and John Harbaugh, some of his decisions to go for it. Which was the team that went for it from their own 24? That was the Chargers.
That was the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, how Staley's lucky they won the game. Let's just put it that way.
Well, they're saying on the metric side, it actually was the right decision. The probability, yeah, I mean, that one is the McDaniels was just a complete and utter joke. I mean, how dumb can you be? You're on the 6 or 8, 7 yard line. When are you going to get a chance to get in the end zone?
Yeah, that was an awful move by Las Vegas. But I'm gonna say with the Chargers, I still don't understand it from their own 24. But oh well. I mean,
Well, they're supposed to be able to get that yardage.
Yeah, well, they 52 points. It was interesting because that game could have been 80 points if they didn't beat each other up by who could make the most mistakes in the red zone.
And what was this topic? Dinosaur head coaches?
Yeah. So I want to talk about modeling. Again, we've talked about this in college. We talk about teams that pass a lot, how to model for them, like the BYUs in the past when they had Lavelle Edwards and even after Lavelle Edwards, that you found it a little bit different when you had teams that passed more than 40% of the time, let's say. But let's talk about the NFL because there are certain teams. Remember Jeff Fisher and John Fox, how when the game changed, they didn't adapt. We talked about that. They got fired. Jeff Fisher couldn't even figure it out in the XFL, USFL, and any other league that he was in. Jeff Fisher couldn't figure it out. John Fox. So I want to concentrate on Mike Vrabel. Tennessee, obviously a run-first team. It's not so much. Atlanta tries to be creative, even though they run the ball 45 times a game. Chris, Tennessee is not creative at all offensively. I mean, absolutely not creative. So my first question to you is, does your model do anything that talks about how coaches coach offensively? Do you account for the fact that Miami has a certain type of offense, or in Kansas City where speed is just everywhere, versus Tennessee where it's such a different offense?
No, I mean, how can you account for that? If anything, and other people agree, or other people don't know any better, I think if anything, if you try to make those adjustments manually, you overcompensate.
Yeah.
Because there's just too many, facets of the game, and maybe boredom or flash sticks out like a sore thumb, but there's a hell of a lot of other moving parts. So,
yeah, I mean, I didn't expect that it would be in your model, but yeah, keep going.
Well, but but that's the point, is that there's so many other things happening on the field, besides, what your eyes can see, that you're undoubtedly going to end up overcompensating if you're going to specifically try to account for it, in my opinion. And I've talked to other people that feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm working on an idea in terms of how to factor it in. And one of the things we talked offline, because you texted me, you asked me about sack data, having data for each team, for and against, and so on. And That's one of the reasons why I do these kind of little sheets here where game by game, I know how many sacks they're getting and against which team and what the running back's doing in each game and stuff like that. Because what I want to do is for a team like Tennessee, I want to know exactly how they performed against certain defenses, because it's one thing to be predictable. And Tennessee with Derrick Henry in his prime running 25 times a game, they dare you to stop him. And a lot of the teams cannot stop him, but certain defenses who can stop him. And I want to try to pinpoint those in advance. Tennessee runs a predictable offense, and when they're stopped, they have no other option. And that's what I want to, not in a model, but kind of look at and anticipate when that predictability is going to be harmful to them, if that makes sense.
Touching on that subject, there's been so many times when you sit there and you listen to the narrative of Team A, who is a great passing team facing the worst passing defense in the league. And what happens? They don't run all over them.
Yes.
Because if we know what the weaknesses and strengths are, trust me, they know what they are. So they're making these, deliberate adjustments to address these weaknesses, and whether they're successful or not, it at least is disruptive, and it's unpredictable, and it kind of levels the playing field a little bit in an unpredictable way. So that's part of how you get yourself in trouble, thinking a great passing team versus a horrible passing defense team is going to run all over them. It doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And you see it more in the running game than the passing game, because sometimes they don't change their schemes. And so they're still going to allow the underneath passes, and they're still going to allow quarterbacks to get into rhythm. And the better quarterbacks will compensate and take care of that. But in the run game, if they see the stats that they're allowing 6 yards per carry, and we see the stats that they're allowing 6 yards per carry, they're going to do something about it. It might be a change in personnel, a different defensive tackle. It might be a safety cheating up against the run. So I agree with that completely. You do have to be careful with the numbers. But then we bring up the coaches again, and this morphs into another topic. But I think it was Friday that we talked about that, and I said, if you've got a bad coach, that doesn't necessarily mean if they're making bad crunch time decisions and they may lose the game, that doesn't mean you can't back bad coaches as an underdog. If the metrics, if the line of scrimmage data says that's what you should do. But I'll double down on what I said. I think you agreed with it on Friday. It's treacherous to take a bad coach as a favorite, especially over a field goal or over a touchdown, because they're going to screw it up either back door or front door.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to be getting the points in those situations, or you want two bad coaches facing each other.
Yeah, who could lose it first? But it's something to account on. I'm trying to be wary because I take a lot of underdogs. I mean, that's the way I work, because I've known for 30 or 40 years that my best winning percentage is with underdogs. But I definitely do not want to take underdogs where either A, I don't think they're going to win the game, or B, I think I'm going to pound my fist into the wall saying, why did I take XYZ coach knowing that he was going to blow it? I'd rather have a fishing
It kind
coach.
of reminds me, somebody was mentioning this morning that they were going to be doing all the Ron teasers. And fortunately, I didn't have Jacksonville. I didn't have Baltimore last week. And I'm looking at a handful of games this week. I don't want any part of teasers on it, but he asked me why, and I figured I'd give the same answer here. Is generally I don't want to blindly play one teasers, because if you really dive deep into them, there are subsets of ones that win at higher rates than other ones, and there's situations that I kind of want to stay away from. And my radar went off last week on those games, but generally my quick answer also was, I'm not going to be looking to tease a team that I am unwilling to play on the point spread, or at least my data says I'm supposed to play on the point spread. So there's many times where I'm supposed to play that heavy favorite, and I don't want to. I got to get some teaser stuff in there. But that's the reason I'm playing it. If I don't, like, I'm trying to think of a game here. Let's see. Like Dallas, if they were 7, they're kind of falling out of teaser range, but my data has it right at 7. So I'm not going to tease. If they were 7.5, I'm not going to bother to put them in a teaser because I have no interest in betting Dallas minus the 7.5. So that's my thought process. 2 long teasers. I had that combo yesterday with the Jets and the last 2 days. Jets and the Rams was a nice combination.
Yeah.
But I think there's been more than that. I think. Maybe not.
Yeah. It's hard to say you should play a teaser on a game that you wouldn't play otherwise, because there's a reason you wouldn't play the game.
Auto playing them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are auto playing them, and it's tough because if you're really trying to care about them and not just throw them in there, it's hard to find a second leg of a teaser some weeks. I had a devil of a time 2 weeks ago. Or maybe it was 3 weeks, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had a devil of a time initially for this week. So I take them very seriously. I want them on you got to be coming off the right numbers. Enough about that. Green Bay, the Lions. You got anything on this yo-yo game?
Well, I'm still formulating my data, so I'm just going through the stat sheets as we go through. I'm very impressed with the Lions' ability to stop the run. And so we talked a little bit about that. If Green Bay is forced to pass, and again, that's what I would make Green Bay. I'd make Jordan Love beat me through the air. And Jordan Love's not afraid to throw deep. And that was true in college, and it's true in the NFL. So Detroit has to be wary of being beaten over the top, but it's a lot easier if you defend the run the way Detroit is doing it.
Detroit's number 5 in rushing defense.
So as we're going through this, how much are you going to trust your model after 3 weeks versus after 4 weeks? I mean, you've talked about turning it over to your model 3 weeks, and I wait 4.
Let me do a quick count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. I mean, I have 6 of these games already coming out dead on the number, like within a point or dead on the number. So it's already stabilized quite a bit. I mean, if you've got that many games that are dead on the number, which is roughly half, it's pretty hard for the rest of them to be like completely out of skew. I mean, you've got to start trusting your numbers a little bit, at least if they're directional.
Now, obviously, no model is going to take this into account, and it shouldn't. But the last game of last year, the Detroit Lions came out, having been eliminated a couple of hours beforehand, went to Green Bay and spoiled Green Bay's season. And now in a standalone game, Green Bay, without Aaron Rodgers, of course, in the building, they're going to try to use that and say, hey, wait a second. We know what Detroit did to us last year. We're 2-1. Detroit's 2-1. This is an important home game. How much should last year's result matter?
Well, it's earlier in the season, so it's certainly fresh in their minds. Did you mention, I think Detroit's won like 4 games in a row, haven't they?
I know they've won at least the last 2 No. 2021, Green Bay beat Detroit at home, 35-17.
I just, you know what, I see I've listened to some pods, I've read some articles on the Lions, and it seems like they have the proper mindset here. I mean, Green Bay hasn't impressed me here. They've been fortunate to have their 2 victories. It's a divisional game. The Lions are going to show up, and it looks like they're going to be a lot healthier.
So I handicap using 3 methods: situational, power rating, and technical factors, matchup factors. To me, the matchup factors favor Detroit. The situation slightly favors Green Bay, and the power ratings has no value either way on this game. So I would probably weigh the matchup more than the situation. It is a short week for both teams. However, both teams come off wins, and I think they could easily turn the corner from last week's game and focus on this week's divisional game. So I see no bearing personally from that whatsoever.
I agree. That's, I sit there and I look at that Green Bay teaser leg, and it just seems like a no-brainer, like last week, where you would just take the dog and, in the Chargers, Minnesota, and cash your ticket. And I just don't. And there's a handful of games that fit this category this week that I just don't. There's something rubs me the wrong way. It just seems like if Buffalo has their way, that they very easily could get an front door cover, so to speak, against Miami.
I wouldn't touch that in a teaser because it's going to be high variance, high scoring. Green Bay, Detroit. I understand the rationale behind using a Green Bay teaser for those who love teasers. I'll do more of a deep dive on the game. I will probably leave it alone because of the situational factor, even though I think Detroit's the better team.
This kind of reminds me, I should talk about this. The Oregon money line. I'm sure everybody's heard about that. For a 22-point favorite, it should have been minus like in the 1300s, 1400 range. And the books were getting buried with Colorado action. Several books said if Colorado had won, it would have been their biggest loss ever, I think, in college football. So the line was down to minus 750. I saw as low as minus 650. But minus 800 was extremely easy. 50% value. I mean, the line's supposed to be 50% higher. So what do you do in this situation? And what I ended up doing is, instead of laying that 800, you've got to lay the minus 800. You got to do something with it. You're talking about just too much of an edge. You're not talking about just taking a random 21-point team. This was a solid handicap and just a huge difference in value you just cannot ignore. So you got to do something with it. And who wants to lay 800? Who's got the credit? Who wants to lay out the cash? So what I ended up doing was I ended up putting him in in parlay after parlay after parlay after parlay. So I would do things like, that's something to consider too, because it makes you look like a donkey in your accounts. So I would put Oregon into the Detroit Lions money line. So they were 3.5, didn't want to do that. I can lay minus 119 with Oregon and Detroit money line. Cleveland, 3.5, same thing. Laying minus 119 on Cleveland. I did that in a variety of different ways. You could technically put yourself in situations where you could actually take a plus 3.5 and lay the minus 3 and get paid to have a free 3.5. So you can get really creative on that. You can look at alternate lines. If you compare an alternate line proposition and make an alternate line, much better priced. So Just my advice. Didn't want to go off on a tangent here, but you do have options in those situations, and that's what I was doing. Reminded me the Lions was one of the games that I did it with.
Well, what's interesting about that, just to briefly touch on it, is that it wasn't just the fact that it was a 21-point favorite. I mean, you have to somehow think that there was some value in Oregon winning the game 80, 90, 95, 98% of the time. I handicapped the game as 42-10. 52-20. 72 points, 52-20. I mean, Oregon was, I think, my second biggest play this past week. So I would say in that particular case, it wasn't a normal 21-point favorite because there was, I'm sitting there laying the 20, I actually laid 20 and a half. But if you're laying that already, of course you're going to like the fact that they're going to win the game. So
well, and here's the way that I mentally process it. You sit there and you take an amount that you want to win. Okay. And what is that amount going to be? And let's just say it's $100. So you want to win $100 and you're willing to risk $800 to do it. Instead of just making that one bet to win $100, put that $800 and put it in 8 different bets and you can get yourself a bunch of equity into stuff that you're planning on playing anyway tomorrow. Obviously, we don't marry parlays and teasers unless we have to. So it allows you to just maneuver certain things. I had a couple of bad positions. I was stuck on Minnesota plus 1.5, and I didn't like it. And I took back Minnesota plus 112 or something with the parlay. So I had a free 1 to 1.5 both ways. That was one thing. There was something else. I wanted out of my Tennessee plus 3.5 also. That's why I used the Cleveland money line plus 119. So I was getting paid to get a plus 3.5 to a pick. So, and I don't really use, somebody asked whether I do open teasers. I have places that I do. I don't know what it is. I don't really set them up. I probably should. My account preservation radar kind of tells me that that's not that you don't want stuff like that sitting in your accounts drawing attention. So I kind of steer away from it, but I should use that option a little bit more often. Anything Falcons? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry you just bring up an interesting point. To me, the open teaser concept is interesting. It was, I don't want to belabor the point that I don't really play teases, but I did used to play open teases because it was that very thing that you could set things up for. You didn't have to find something that week, even if there wasn't anything. You just mentioned how you struggled to find a second part. Well, you can let it ride and hold it. But again, when I was doing these open teases years ago, my books don't really offer that now. But when I was doing them, the juice was less. You were laying 120 at 5 dimes. You could lay like 112, 111 or something on some of these teases. You could do lots of different things. So not only were you getting better value for your tease, but then you could leave it open a lot longer to a stronger position down the road. But once that dried up, I wasn't interested anymore.
So I'll remind people the Jacksonville is not at home. That game's in London, although they go there every year, so it is a second home. And I don't see anything in the news, but somebody just hit this Jacksonville. It was kind of leaning toward a weak 3, and now it's a strong 3. So any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think the newness for Atlanta going overseas off a loss isn't a good situational factor for them. Obviously, to the naked eye, Jacksonville has not finished the deal. They've scored 26 points the last 2 weeks, and they were at home both of those weeks against Kansas City and against Houston. They had 9 points and I think 17 points, whatever it is. They didn't look good at all offensively. So they're 1-2. They're obviously going to be focused on the game. Atlanta, they're 2-1. I give the slight edge Jacksonville at first glance, but I have to dig into my numbers.
Yeah, I haven't done anything, and I'm just going to sit and let that game percolate. Atlanta was certainly unimpressive. Uh, the Lions'
They got
defense isn't that good, uh, so little leery on that Atlanta. Leery on both of the non-teams, that's for sure. So,
wait till the next game. You got a couple of play-ons.
yeah, uh,
Miami,
Dolphins,
Buffalo.
Bills,
Boy, oh boy. What a game.
Dolphins, Bills.
Yeah. Yeah. Buffalo. So power rating wise, as a comparison, right now, Buffalo has slid into the number one spot for me. I should get pushback from you and others on that, but that's where they are for me. So what do you see there? Is Buffalo anywhere close to number one?
Yeah, they're
It's
in the
fluid.
neighborhood. They're in the
Yeah, it's
neighborhood.
fluid.
They're in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And obviously Miami is moving up rapidly. So yeah.
I have.
Go ahead.
I'm pretty close on this number. So, and as I indicated earlier, I don't. There's something rubs me the wrong way on this, even if you took it to 2.5. But this is slid up during the show also, and is mostly 3 now. So that's not a position you want to tease. So probably just an interesting game to sit back and watch.
I'd love to watch it as a fan more than anything. A couple of observations for me on this game. Number one, I do think Buffalo's goal is going to be to do something no one else has done so far, and that's to pressure Tua. Tua has been sacked one time. He's been hit. I don't know what happened last week, but he probably wasn't hit last week. Somebody said he had been hit 4 times total in the first 2 weeks. If Buffalo doesn't hit Tua, it's going to be a track meet beyond belief in this particular game on October 1st. So I think that's the most important thing to look at is to what happens there. And of course, on Buffalo's side, are they going to continue to trust their run game? Because when they have run pass balance, Buffalo looks a lot better.
I think they have to be pretty happy with the way they performed the last couple of weeks, and you'd have to think they stick with it.
Yeah, I love the game, though.
I know Minnesota Carolina is going to be your biggest bet of the week. Why don't you explain yourself?
Okay, yeah, sure. Minnesota is a play-on team every Tuesday, but unfortunately, they don't have a game on Tuesdays. It's the other games. -7 turnovers really says it all. This is a team that probably, if they had last year's karma, would be sitting 3-0. If they had an even turnover ratio in every single game, they'd be sitting 3-0 right now. Yeah. But let's not think they're great. They've allowed somewhere in the neighborhood of, they were one of the 3 teams I think you mentioned, 75+% completions, which obviously is very bad. Of course, now it'll be interesting. If they play Andy Dalton, that's going to be worse on them because Andy Dalton's going to be more accurate than the rookie Bryce Young. So I don't know about you, but for me, I'm really not going to, if anything, I might upgrade Carolina if they use Andy Dalton in this game against this particular team. Thoughts?
Yeah, going to see how the week plays out. There's no early indicators of having to do anything immediately, and I'm trying to wash the bad taste of Carolina out of my mouth from last week. And speaking of bad taste, 2 teams I lost with are facing each other. So this Denver Bears game, my gosh, how does this matchup come to fruition? With
Well, can you think of any other team other than these 2 that goes into a week with less motivation? I mean, you play on the Bears, you run the risk that they don't care. You play on Denver, you run the risk that Sean Payton is ready to put his fist through a wall and said, I want to blow this whole thing up. We talk about Russell Wilson, but you allowed 70 points in an NFL game for the first time since 1966. What are the odds? What are you showing as the odds right now?
On
Denver. Den-
It is an extremely weak 3.5 or strong 3.
Yeah. See, offhand, I would never have made it. I would never have crossed 3 with this game.
No,
But
I
it's
thought that was insanity.
my numbers support 2. Denver -2, but it's the Bears, and if they go behind 7-0, either the fans leave or they start throwing apples and oranges on the field or something like that. So,
You know what? That's one of those games that's going to just have to percolate during the week. My numbers support Denver here, but they also supported Denver last week. So
I will do anything possible to hope that once I do a deep dive in this game, that it tells me nothing. That's
I
my
hope
hope.
that's what happens. Baltimore and the Cleveland Browns. This ought to be interesting.
Important divisional game right away. This is Cleveland's third.
Watson did okay this game, their last game.
Best game he's had. Clearly the best game he's had. So Tennessee's pass defense. Tennessee is a run defense team, not a pass defense team. But they have the right scheme. They used their get well card in that game. So impressive for Watson. If Cleveland's defense is going to play like this, do you trust? This is just a hypothetical question or whatever, because I haven't answered it myself. Do you trust Lamar Jackson to make the right reads if he has to pass?
No. Do you?
I don't think so. I don't think Lamar Jackson is a pocket passer. In fact, I know he's not a pocket passer. He'd rather improvise on the fly and find somebody open because of his fantastic escapability skill. We know Lamar is a fantastic athlete, but if Cleveland is playing assignment sound, this is a problem for a Lamar Jackson type player.
What are they going to do like last week? I don't understand this again. On designed runs, Jackson was doing pretty well, and they kept on putting him in the pocket, and they weren't getting crap done. What's going to happen with the Cleveland defense on designed runs?
Well, last year's Cleveland defense was bad, 4.7 allowed per carry. This year's Cleveland defense is good at everything, 3 yards per carry, and it's not like they haven't gone against runners. They went against Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, and Derrick Henry, for goodness sakes. So those numbers that they're putting up are earned. So I don't think a running back's going to have success against Cleveland. So it's Lamar Jackson on runs that are unanticipated or some escapability or nothing. And then Lamar Jackson's going to have to throw, and he's going to throw to Zay Flowers. And Zay's a great rookie, but he's throwing short stuff to him. Nelson Aguilar could go a little bit deeper. They're getting Andrews, their tight end, back in the mix, and he's going to have to be a key cog in this game. Somebody's thanks for the comment. But basically, Baltimore's defense, what I don't like about Baltimore is they were up on Indy and they let Indy score at the end because of bad scheming. Baltimore's defense should be every bit and is every bit as good as Cleveland, but I just don't like the way they squandered leads last year. 6 double-digit leads in the first 9 games. They almost squandered 3 outright, and they're squandering leads again this year. They got away with it against Cincinnati, and they did not get away with it against Indy. So turnovers are going to decide this game.
Doesn't the total seem high?
I didn't set totals yet, so probably don't tell me the total yet.
It's 48.
That would be high. I don't. I think I would put you on mute, and I would be making a bet if it was 48.
I took some under 42 this morning. I took the last 42 I saw, and
let's take a right
41.
turn. Let's take a right turn. Put back up Xavier's comment.
Which one?
It's the last topic that I want to give you. His topic about taking under 19.5 team total. I think.
Okay.
Was that it? Yeah. I want to talk about first half lines because I was browsing on them the last couple of weeks, especially since you were involved early in the first half unders when the teams weren't quite ready to play. I realized there's a lot of very important numbers. We talk about numbers that are important in the NFL: 3, 7, maybe 41 for a game total, maybe 45, 47 for a game total. But first half totals, 20, 23. I'm seeing a lot of pushes on 2023. The difference between 19 and a half and 20, and let's say 22 and a half and 23, I'm beginning to think, and I'm just starting to do research on this, that those are huge differences.
Yeah, they're very important numbers. You can't be pissing away half points off of 23 and 20. So, and then the other thing about it is some spots will let you buy the points too. So if you don't see the number available on the screen or at a first glance, I didn't even realize a lot of places that are letting you buy points on the first half totals. So,
oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, familiarize yourself with the prices and see what's reasonable and such. But you know, they don't usually offer those if they're a good deal.
So I'm thinking you may not know the answer to this, but it is something I'm going to monitor. How many times can you find books with differing first half totals?
Oh, I look for them. If I have any time at all, I certainly bring it up. Like,
yeah,
just I was quickly scanning when I switched to first halves just to see if there was anything that stuck out like a sore thumb.
So I think that's a homework assignment for me. Just something interesting. Maybe we'll double back on it in a week or two. I want to see if there's variance on first half totals because that might be something in the, let's call it, very interesting category, especially early in the season and maybe especially in divisional games, Chris, as well.
Well, good thoughts. Good thoughts. I've been looking into it myself.
Value of our talking back and forth. That was never going to come up in this conversation, but it just came up.
Pittsburgh, Houston.
Yeah. I've got more work to do on this game. I made the line 3. What do you have the line?
Did I see that the media or a bunch of people in Houston, the best thing that Lovie Smith ever did was win that last game?
Yeah.
Because this Stroud, he's very impressive. I mean, he's got some great metrics going. He hasn't thrown a pick yet, right? I mean,
that's amazing that he hasn't thrown a pick. It really is amazing. And he's more of a pocket passer too, because he doesn't try to use his legs running.
He's got a paper mache offensive line. I mean, it's just very impressive for a rookie. We've never seen somebody come out of the gate like this.
Yeah, and look at their run game. It's averaging under 3 yards per carry. So he has to get it done via the pass. They know he's going to pass. They know he's a rookie. And look at what he's done. It's a very interesting, very impressive. And basically, if the line is 3 or higher, I show Pittsburgh again in another bad situational spot, but they overcame it last week. So we'll see. Pittsburgh has looked horrible against the run. But
Vegas, Tampa Bay, and Houston are under 3 yards per carry. Somebody bet a little bit on Houston while we were on the air earlier.
Yeah. Okay. That could happen. Rams
Colts. What are your impressions on that game? That's actually an interesting matchup.
Yeah. I think this is a good matchup for Stafford as opposed to more of a press defense of Cincinnati. So I go in thinking that unless Stafford is just deciding to overthrow people or get too greedy, he should be able to cut down on the interceptions in this particular game. Rams have one running back, and he's running 3.5 yards per carry in that area. So the Rams are being very one-dimensional right now. And for that matter, Moss of Indianapolis thought he comes off a broken arm, I think, and he's run for over 100 yards per game in the 2 games he's played. So I would expect Indy to have run pass balance again. We don't know who their quarterback is, but they're very different quarterbacks, in my opinion.
What this answers Birdie's question, the same question I have. What kind of rushing or pass defense does Indianapolis have?
Indianapolis?
Yeah,
they play the soft zone defense that I hate for years. So Stafford's going to be completing very close to 70% in this game.
the Colts sacked Stroud 6 times though somehow.
Yeah, 6. I wrote it down wrong then. I thought I had it at 4.
Because, well, then Baltimore's got a good pass rush, right?
Yeah,
So
Baltimore
we're looking
has
at
a good pass
Houston's
rush.
previous games.
Oh, Houston. Okay, I'm sorry. I had Indy. Yeah. The Colts sacked him 6 times. That's correct. You got it. Yeah, so the Colts are showing a much better pass rush. Much better pass rush. But I still think Stafford's going to complete a high percentage of passes. You're going to see Nakua and Atwell again with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 catches.
Tampa Saints.
Yeah, 2 defensive coaches squaring off against each other. You remember, unfortunately, we both remember how much we thought that New Orleans was going to take care of business against Tampa last year, and then their best player got ejected, and they hadn't done anything, and then they let Brady get in rhythm. But New Orleans defense has owned Tampa's offense for a few years now, so it's going to be interesting to see. I think New Orleans defense will do it again. Now, Derek Carr is going to be questionable for this game. At this time, this is early, but I don't think he's going to be playing, but that could change.
Yeah, I thought he had a 0% chance, but I was seeing some stuff online this morning that indicated that he does have a chance to play.
Yeah. Yeah, or it just might be talk. So we don't know. The backup for New Orleans is Jameis Winston. Remember him? And he's more willing to throw the ball into coverage.
I was just trying to. I think he's ruled out now.
Yeah. Well, I'm handicapping this game as if Derek Carr is not going to play.
Can't be sure, so don't quote me on it, people.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot more work for me to do. I mean, the game was just played yesterday, and I had no time to even watch it or digest it. So for Tampa.
Yeah, me either. I don't see any immediate value anyway.
Yeah.
This Philadelphia game's a little interesting. Philadelphia, off the short week, Washington after getting humiliated. If you're going to get any effort, it's going to be this game. But doesn't Washington kind of have Philly's number?
Yeah, this is a mixed bag at Philly, but Washington would have the slight edge there. They've only won 1 of the last 6 straight up at Philly.
But they're always close, aren't they?
Yeah. They're 3-3, I believe, against the spread in the last 6. It's mostly been you can't do anything, unfortunately, from the historical stuff. I can't learn anything from that. I can say that I agree with you. I expect a much better effort out of Washington, but they can't have Hal, who basically is like a rookie, turn the ball over that many times and expect to be competitive. We could have the right side. We could say Washington's the right side, and they could be -3 turnovers in this game, and it's over.
Yeah, the turnovers are killing me.
Yeah, I would say between sacks and turnovers, we would be playing with fire with Washington, but I would guess that would probably be the only side I would lean, but we would be playing with fire.
Oh, the Bengals, I can't make sense out of this Bengals Titans. These are two bet against teams as far as I'm concerned. So doubtful I'll do anything on it.
Yeah, deeper dive for me. Cleveland off, Cincinnati off Monday, so I haven't really digested Cincinnati's performance, Joe Burrow's health, all that stuff.
Raiders, Chargers. Garoppolo's in concussion protocol. I thought I saw that there has been nobody that has made the next game in this situation. I think everybody has gone on to the next week.
I don't know who they would start if it wasn't for him. They have a veteran, and then they have O'Connell, who had a very nice rookie preseason for.
I thought I heard O'Connell's name mentioned on that.
Yeah. So they've used him as emergency quarterback. They haven't used him as a second string guy, but that might change for this game because he had a very impressive preseason. He's going against a Charger defense that doesn't scare anybody, really.
Boy, these Raven injury numbers are like alarming. I mean, they're all red across the board. Jesus.
Yeah, something's going on there. Las Vegas has a -7 turnover ratio, so they're killing themselves, much like Minnesota.
Oh gosh,
we'll dive into that on Friday. It's Sports USA game, so we don't have to say much here. We'll have more clarity on injuries too. Miami Buffalo too on Friday, so it's going to be fun to talk about those two games.
Patriots Cowboys, another goofy game. I mean, you've got to expect Dallas to just really show up here, but Patriots finally got the monkey off their back. They need this game. There should be a tight game. 7 seems like a lot, but my numbers have it right there at 7.
My numbers have it 6.5, so we're right there. Obviously, Dallas is going to be more focused now. Even if they would have had a scare, much less a loss, they're going to be more focused in this game. New England's going to be focused too. They're only 1-2. You don't want to start off 1-3 in the NFL, especially when you have Miami and Buffalo in that particular division. So you're going to get both teams' best effort. Let's put it that way.
49ers just keep on rolling. I'm not getting in front of that bus. I don't think so.
No, I mean, I applaud everything Arizona's done, but this may be one of those Colorado-Oregon type games where you say, wait a second, there's a mismatch in personnel and scheme and playing potential in this game. I agree. Let's not get in front of that bus. Let's do other games.
Kansas City Jets. Thank goodness I don't have to watch Sunday Night Football. Or even sweat the score.
Yeah. Kansas City's defense has played above my expectations.
Yes.
So I have to take that into account. But I want to see another data set. I want to see. Well, I don't know if it's going to tell me much. If they can stop, I think the Jets are a better running team than they showed last week against New England. Talked about Breece Hall. He was 12 carries for 18 yards. Delvin Cook was 9 carries for 18 yards. So between them, they ran 21 times for 30-something yards, 36 yards. Just horrendous.
Where do you have Kansas City's defense?
I would probably put Kansas City's defense right now, based on my numbers, top 5, which is
they're
crazy.
In my top 5.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? They've never been there.
That's a shocker because they're never in the top 10. Never. Yeah. So, and actually, I have their defense rated higher than their offense.
I agree.
Yep.
So,
Home field advantage, not much. Not much. Just game by game basis.
Was that a question or? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What adjustments are you guys doing a home field advantage? Yeah, absolutely. Game by game basis. For example, Mahomes going to the Jets. Normally I try to give an extra half point home field advantage for Sunday night standalone games. But when Mahomes is involved, I think I take away that half point advantage. So I don't see much there. Obviously, I'm not making any adjustments home field other than maybe the Bears. I'm going to probably give them no home field advantage at the present time. But for the most part, I'm not making adjustments.
I agree with Xavier, number 2 in the AFC.
Behind the Browns defense. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. You got consensus there.
Monday night, I find interesting. What about you?
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, wow, I want to do a deeper. There's no way I'm prepared to talk about this game right now, but I think it's a fascinating game from a number of standpoints. In terms of how Seattle is going to scheme against Daniel Jones, in terms of how Seattle's defense is going to hold up, whether Barkley plays because there's an extra day and a half or does he not play, because there's a big difference in Barkley's ability to do catch the ball and run the ball versus anybody else on the New York Giants. They're going to have to run Daniel Jones a whole bunch of times in this game if Barkley's not there.
Well, he had extra rest, didn't he?
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of extra rest now because he will have not played for 15 days, right? 21 days. Yeah. So, but I don't know if he play. I mean, they may try to rush him back. I don't think he went on IR, so I could be corrected on that.
I don't have the info yet. It's not up yet.
Yeah. Giants have 2 defensive sacks through 3 games. That has to change in this game. You don't want to give any quarterback a clean pocket, but Geno Smith is hitting close to 70%. If you give him a clean pocket, you have too many weapons there. I think the Giants' pass rush is a very important element to this game if they want to win it. Something to think about.
You know what? I got to get a better weather app because they're worried about the thunderstorms and the winds in New Orleans.
Yeah. What they do, take the dome off in the off season or something?
Well, but no, here's a serious question, though. What's going on with the Arizona roof? I've been talking about it a couple of times this year. It is retractable, isn't it?
I believe it's retractable, and I think they use it in the summer games because of the extreme humidity and stuff like that. Or, 100 degrees or whatever it is. I think they tend to have, again, I don't know for a fact, but I think they play more with the roof closed in these extreme temperatures that Arizona has.
You do have some winds predicted in Philly, Carolina. Houston's a dome. Chargers is the dome. And Cowboys is a dome. God, what a waste of my time. So a couple of games to keep an eye on. I'm out of bullets. Anything else on your mind?
No, just like everybody else, it's time to do a deeper dive. These brainstorming sessions are not meant to have exact conclusions on a Tuesday. Sometimes we see something right away. Sometimes we just need a little bit more work. And I'm of the opinion that after not seeing the ball, like golfers, if they're not putting correctly or something like that, the hole isn't big enough for them. For me, I'd rather take a step back in the NFL and recalibrate and make sure that I catch everything, because I'm not in rhythm right now. Ask me about college. Yeah, I'm in rhythm. But in the NFL, I am not in rhythm. And maybe when we get to week 5, when I get to cross over and turn over all my data, it's a different story. But right now, I think the slow but sure approach is a better approach.
Oh, I agree. I think I'm happiest about this week is that there's so many games I don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
There's just a nice chunk of games I know I won't be playing, so that's a good
Yeah.
feeling because I can focus on the games that I have interest in and maximize the best ways to attack them.
That's a teaching point that you just mentioned. The best thing to do is eliminate games first and then concentrate on the games that you have left, whether it be college with 50 games or NFL with a full slate of 16. If you've eliminated 6 games and you can concentrate on the other 10, I think your focus becomes better. Everybody's focus becomes better. So if there's some games with high variability, some unknowns due to injuries or performances that are off the wall from one week to the next, or 2 teams that just match up well against each other, there's no edge, move on to the next game.
Um, the only problem I've had a problem a handful of times where I do basically do a light pencil cross out or I know I'm done with the game, and then something happens, and believe it or not, you get enough mind movement that you realize, hey, wait a minute, now I got to take a look at this game again, and those are really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel mentally, I could be wrong that it works against me if I get involved in the games. But I can remember a handful where it was a good move, so I'm not sure how I do on those.
Well,
Do you think anything about the zero the Giants going through the zero?
First of all, there's been weird Green Bay movement the last 2 weeks, and I think I even texted you on those. I said Green Bay's now a dog and stuff like that. So I've benefited from Green Bay crossing key numbers. If they cross key numbers on Sunday, yeah, I might get involved in a game that I might not have. Now, your question about crossing the zero
in the Giants game.
taking the Giants in the tees while being favored, is that the question?
No, he just asked whether we discussed it moving through the zero. I was surprised I wasn't surprised to see New York get bet, but I kind of feel Seattle will get bet. What do you think?
My numbers put the game being on standalone Monday at Pick'em. My power ratings put it at Pick'em. So unless the line gets really close to 3 either way, that will be one area where I don't have to worry about, okay, power ratings are close. Now I can concentrate on the technical factors and any other situational factors I see. We probably won't have too many situational factors. These guys don't even play each other that much. But I'll look back at it. So I'll just look at the matchups. And I think the first thing that I discuss, the thing I left people with, the Giants have to put pass rush pressure. And not only that, and it was mentioned by JP in the chat, not just pressure, they have to get to Geno Smith because Wink Martingale, their defensive coordinator, is famous for bringing the blitz and leaving his corners exposed. And he has a first-round draft pick at one cornerback, and he has a 6th-round draft pick at the other cornerback. And that's a recipe for disaster if the blitz does not get there. So this has to be get in Geno Smith's face and sack him. Otherwise, it could be a long day for the Giants.
You know what? I don't know how they're going to get to him, frankly.
Well, that's the thing I'm going to have to think about with the offensive line of Seattle and with what and it's not just a function of the pass. If Seattle is unable to establish the run, then it makes it more likely that the pass rush could get through if they become one-dimensional. But if we also think that Seattle can run the ball, then the New York Giants are going to have to defend both the run and the pass. And then every time they send the blitz, they're in danger.
Has Ritter blown his trust with you?
The question is, has he blown his trust with Atlanta? Because they don't like to throw more than 25. Their ideal game plan is Ritter throwing the ball 27 times max. So we'll see. Ritter reminds me of like a Gardner Minshew. He reminds me of a guy. Ritter won a lot of games in college. Let's put it that way with Cincinnati. He found a way. Ritter is a very good quarterback in terms of a guy I might trust with the game on the line. But his overall arm strength talent, his overall ability to be in the neighborhood of a top 10 quarterback, it's never going to happen, in my opinion. The ceiling for Ritter is to be have a lot of weapons around him, be a top 15 quarterback, and have a GM that understands that maybe I'll draft a pass rusher before 2028.
Well, it's teetering toward a 3.5. So obviously, you got to at least consider Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, 3.5 in a London game seems like a lot of points because there's the variable of how these guys travel and so on and so forth. I don't know about you, but I've kind of tried to shy away from London games.
I haven't been doing very well in the London games.
And we have a new situation this week because Jacksonville's staying in London and playing next week. So
yeah, and isn't it amazing that they're going to be there for 2 weeks and then they're the road team in their second game? Shouldn't they be the road team in the first game?
Yeah. The NFL does weird things in terms of scheduling AFC and NFC teams there and mixing it up and doing weird things that way, robbing somebody of a home game. I don't know. I think somewhere down the line after I'm retired from gambling, Jacksonville will become London anyway. So
might be right. All right. Well, we should probably boogie. It's been 4 hours and 16 minutes.
Yeah, kind of a long show. This is what happens when you're really winging it.
I'm tired. I have to finish my NCAA I started, and
I got a lot of work left to do, but I'll get it done. And
yeah, can you finish your NCAA now so I can get with you tonight on that?
Yeah, I'm going to go warp speed. I've got Spock working on it from the Vulcan planet, and he's going to really help me out in that regard. So luckily, there's no MAC games on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so we're a month and a half out from that. But we'll be back on Friday. We'll talk Miami, Buffalo. Hopefully, we'll have some great player interviews from that game. Really hope so. And then we'll have the Rams and the Raiders. A lot to sort out in that game. Is it the Rams and Raiders? No, I'm completely off on that one. No, it's we have Vegas and the Chargers, actually. Completely different game. But a lot to sort out with Jimmy G. We don't think he's playing, or he may not play. We'll find out. Yeah. I have nothing else for you. Thanks for everybody who asked questions, and we'll be back.
Take it easy, everybody. Cheers.